trapped behind enemy lines. Carrying secret information vital to the Republic's war effort, Jedi Master Evan Peel and Captain Tarkin were taken prisoner by the Separatists. An elite strike team led by Obi-Wan Kenobi and Anakin Skywalker landed on the planet Lola Seu and infiltrated the prison. The team rescued Master Peel and Tarkin, but they were pursued by the prison's evil commandant, Osei Sobek. During the escape, their ship was destroyed. Now we find them on the run, desperate to escape the trap that is the Citadel.
Oh, greetings once again, Bucketheads. Mavar Tigar. Welcome to the 126th Republic Rescuing episode of Mandovision. Nargai Tom, and thank you so much for checking out this small, independent Star Wars podcast. Remember, the best way to find us is, of course, social media. You can find us at Mando_Vision on Twitter and Instagram. Please email the show, mandovisiontom@gmail.com. Make sure you're liking, subscribing, and sharing the show with all the other Mandalorians in your covert. We truly, truly appreciate it. How the heck is everyone doing? We're just so close to the end of season 3 for Star Wars: The Clone Wars. It's palpable. It's Palpatine. We're so close. We're right there, and yeah, we're just going to plow ahead. We're here. We're doing episode 20 of the 3rd season. And, you know, we talked about it when we were getting close to it. We knew it was coming. The back half of this season is just off of the charts with crazy, crazy action. And you know, they really do a nice job of ratcheting up that action sequences, the tension, the dark moments for the characters. In this episode in particular, you know, because we're hanging out with Captain Tarkin, we're getting a taste of who he will become when we catch up with him again in Episode 4, New Hope, and we're seeing the sort of the dawn of the relationship between he and Anakin Skywalker, the man who will be Darth Vader. And so there's a lot to really kind of unpack in some of these episodes. This episode in particular, less to tear apart as far as you know, trying to like provide analysis or anything like that. This is a really intense, action-heavy episode. There's only a few snippets of kind of like insightful dialogue between the characters, but that insight is directed towards one Captain Wilf Tarkin, and with Anakin's perspective on Tarkin and the failings of the Jedi Order in the Clone Wars. So it's still interesting, even if it is still a small amount of new content to talk about, as far as you know, kind of getting to contextualize the show. But again, action-packed episode, and you know, we talked about it on the last Clone Wars episode. Just harsh deaths of the clones in these 3 episodes. You know, we had one get bisected in half last week, and this one, you know. there's definitely some unpleasant clone deaths during the course of the series, but 2 unfortunate troopers have a fairly horrific one in this episode as well, and I think we'll talk about it at that time when we get to that chunk of the episode. But yeah, oh boy, really ratcheting up the tension with the death of clone troopers, you know, and obviously last week was a big death with Echo a character that we have seen grow through the course of this show, and with this nonlinear storytelling. We've seen Echo rise up from the beginnings to his death as an ARC trooper, and we get to see how he got there. And so that was a death that has some resonance to it, even though we know, as the big Star Wars fans that we are, that Echo is ultimately not dead. So when that information comes to light down the road, it's remember the impact that it has, because it wasn't just random, right? There was a plan in place, and it shakes the other clone troopers to find out that he's not only alive, but he is a prisoner of the Separatists, and they've been using him for information. Again, we're going to get to all that later, but that's down the road a ways. We should get into the show proper, because that's what we do here on the podcast. I want to make sure that we're all prepared, that we know what's coming. So let's remind ourselves one more time. This is Season 3, Episode 20, Citadel Rescue. Original air date, March 11th, 2011. Our plot for this week: Masters Plo Koon and C-17 head a desperate rescue mission to get the survivors of the Citadel infiltration mission and the information they can. Let me read that again. That sounded like jibber jabber. Masters Plo Koon and C-17 head a desperate rescue operation to get the survivors of the Citadel infiltration mission and the information they carry. I think I did better on that one. This week's episode, directed by Stuart Lee, who has directed so many of the fine episodes of Star Wars: The Clone Wars. The episode is written by Matt Mishnowitz. He closes out his Citadel trilogy right here. Our principal cast for this week's episode, once again, James Arnold Taylor is Obi-Wan Kenobi, Ossie Sobek, and Plo Koon. Matt Lanter is Anakin Skywalker, Ashley Eckstein as Ahsoka Tano and K2B4. Blair Bess is Evan Peel, D. Bradley Baker as the Clone Troopers, Stacey Tin, and Admiral Coburn. Stephen Stanton is Stephen Stanton. Tom Kane is the narrator and Yoda. Matthew Wood is the battle droid. Corey Burton is Count Dooku. Terrence T.C. Carson, Mace Windu. And Angelique Perrin is Adi Gallia. That is our principal cast for this week's episode. That's pretty much everybody who's in the show. Not even principal. It's just all of them. Our Jedi fortune cookie this week is: without honor, victory is hollow. Now, let's talk about this now before we get into the episode, because I do think we should address the Jedi fortune cookie. Because as I was watching this episode, I was sort of... It isn't until the very, very end of the episode that we sort of get what this fortune cookie is trying to talk to us about. And again, we'll let that play out at the end. But let's talk about what shaped this change, because in the original script for this episode, there was supposed to be a very different ending for Ossie Sobek than what happened in the final version of the script and what we saw on the screen. I tried to find out why that was changed, and I haven't been able to find anything substantial or anything that other than like, oh, they blah blah blah. Nothing. Let's put it. Nothing definitive. Nothing that I feel comfortable imparting to you all, because I'd like to, when I say something, what my opinion is. I make it very clear when I'm giving you opinions or when I'm giving information and facts, and I like facts to be facts. They got to have something to support them. So I don't have anything to support why the change was made to the script, but in the original Matt Mishnowitz script, Ossie Sobek is killed in cold blood by Captain Tarkin. Tarkin shoots an unarmed Ossie Sobek, who if information is to be believed, was sort of attempting to surrender, and Tarkin shoots him in cold blood, which causes the Jedi to, more directly, Ahsoka and Obi-Wan, I would imagine, that Tarkin is a man without honor, and that makes a lot more sense tying it together with the fortune cookie that we get. If I were to speculate why this was changed, it is probably because that ending for Sobek with Tarkin killing him in cold blood would probably also cause Anakin to not have good feelings about Tarkin. Now, again, I'm speculating. I'm just talking here. I go with that assumption, even though they could have done something down the road to change Anakin's perceptions of Tarkin. But I think one of the basic tenets of these 3 episodes is sort of building that initial relationship between Tarkin and Anakin, and to have it go that route might have put a blemish on that kind of burgeoning partnership that these two will eventually grow into. So that is my speculation as to why it was changed. I have no facts to support it whatsoever. That is just my opinion as someone who studies a story and things like that. So take it for what you will. We'll talk about it. Well, think about it for yourself and hit me up. Let me know what you think. If you agree, disagree, I'd love to hear it. So you know where to find me. Please do. All right, so let's go ahead and dive into our episode. No, you know what? Hold on. Let's do one thing first before we get to the other side of the bumper. I want to talk about the planet that we're on, Lola Seyu. All right, this planet houses a Citadel, but it's a very interesting looking planet too. So I wanted to kind of get a chance to check some information on it, see if I can find out. And there's not a lot of information. The planet has been mentioned a few times in some other books, and I think even in a video game or two. But there's not a lot of information. It's a beautiful visual. This planet that's kind of like broken in its southern hemisphere, in this pool of yellow that kind of spools out, and the purple surfaces in the unbroken section of the planet. This kind of this wonderful contrast between the two colors, and I think it sort of ties in. We talked about last week with the Laker droids, colored in purple and gold, and that's kind of like the visual effect of the planet as well with this. But I wanted to find out if there was a given reason why the planet's broken in that one particular section, and there's not any information really. So I want to share with you what it says. This is directly from Wikipedia, all right? And it describes Lola Seyu as a decaying world in the northeast of the galaxy. The brittle volcanic planet Lola Seyu was located in the Outer Rim territories, the Belladrone sector, in the system of the same name, along the western side of the Parliament trade route, as well as the Salian corridor. A large portion of the planet's southern hemisphere was broken, which revealed the vast yellow sulfur sea beneath. The planet's northern hemisphere presented a purple hue when viewed from space, with long cracks that resembled vast rivers reaching up into it from where the crust disappeared to the south. Despite the planet's fragility, the northern hemisphere managed to cling to a thin yet breathable atmosphere, making it capable of supporting life. However, water on Lola Seyu was scarce, and no indigenous life forms were known to exist on the planet. The planet's remaining terrain was extremely treacherous and unpredictable, primarily consisting of mountains, hills, caves, crevices, volcanoes, and lava flows. Much of the roads wound close to the edge of the lava flows and would often lead travelers to labyrinth-like cave systems or steep valleys. And those are exactly the things that we see during these 3 episodes of the Citadel once they're making their escape from the actual structure. And we see those crevices and caves and roads along the sulfur thing. We see that very, very well in this episode. So that's basically all the information we have. Again, a planet that I find very visually interesting, but there's not been much mentioned to detail more about the planet. I believe its last mention was actually back in The Mandalorian in chapter 14 of that, The Tragedy, which again one of the great episodes of the series. And I think I'm gonna have to go back and get a little bit more of a context. I think it's just mentioned, not without any sort of detail. But again, for another show. So there we go. I wanted to catch us up on the planet. I wanted to talk about the script change and Tarkin and give you my speculation. But let's go ahead now. Now it is time. And I'm not going back again. All right, it is time. Strap on your buckets. Let's go.
Master Peel, it's good to see you alive, my friend.
Likewise, Master Windu. Our escape route has been compromised, and there are several squads of droids closing in on us.
When can we expect your arrival?
Master Plo is already en route.
Gunships will arrive to evacuate you and your men. But do not delay. Only a small window of opportunity shall we have. Your rendezvous point will be this island.
Understood.
May the Force be with you.
So as I told you all at the beginning of this is a pretty action-packed episode of the show. and it doesn't take long to get into that. You know, we played that clip there with the Jedi reaching out for information to the Jedi Council. When are they going to get rescued? Now, the rescue team needs rescuing. There's something funny in that. But we find out that Bastard Plo is en route. We'll check in with them in a little bit. But this is also when commando droids in pursuit catch up with our team, and they have to engage them in battle. And they are able to dispatch the commando droids, but you know, it's very much a situation that they can't maintain forever. You know, they can keep running, but eventually, if they can't figure out how to get off the planet, they are going to be captured again. At some point, they'll be in an area that's opened, and the droid forces will be able to close in on them. So I think they're trying to convey a real sense of there's not a lot of time left for our heroes to make their escape from this planet. And they're desperately outnumbered, so a last stand isn't an option. They have to kind of go after these small groups of droids piecemeal in a sense. You know, again, they have to avoid being overwhelmed. And coming up, there is a moment where, well, like I said, some clones face in my opinion, a horrific way to die. But we will talk about that when we get there. Let's check in with our villain, Ossie Sobek, as he is rather forced to communicate with Count Dooku. Let's check it out. Again, there's some amusing things in this, and Dooku's really just kind of giving us reminders through the exposition here. He's reminding us about the Nexus roots and their importance to both the Republic and to the Separatists. So let's go ahead and check this out.
Count Dooku, my lord.
Commander Sobek, you've been avoiding my transmissions.
My deepest respect. I was hoping to surprise you with good news.
Good news would indeed be a surprise. Have the prisoners been captured?
Not yet, my lord. But we've located their position, and my droids are moving in now.
I need not remind you that the prisoners are carrying secret hyperspace coordinates into the core systems of the Republic and our separatist homeworlds. This information will allow us to launch a surprise attack on Coruscant, striking a crippling blow to the Republic and the Jedi.
Yes, my lord. I will see to it that they are soon back in our possession.
You should know, Commander. Right now, your honesty is the only thing keeping you alive.
All right, so one of my favorite elements to Ossie Sobek in these 3 episodes is sort of the way he's constantly being foiled and pushed by the Jedi in his effort to recapture them, and the constant beratement from Dooku when he's able to track him down. They give him this subtle eye twitch. I think you noticed it in all 3 episodes, honestly, but it really stands out in this one as Ossie's being pushed harder than he probably has ever been pushed before to recapture these escapees as he views them, and this eye twitch as he's being berated by Count Dooku, it just comes to life. And again, if I feel like it's fairly subtle, it's not like overt enough that it's a centerpiece for a conversation. It's just one of those small little touches that I really like about this show. That sort of imparts a little bit of life to these characters in a fun and unique way. And I rather like the Ossie Sobek character. I think he's a good villain, a good foil. We obviously know his end is nigh by the final moments of this installment. But I don't know. The whole Christopher Walken thing, the whole kind of like giant alligator lizard man thing, kind of just works for me. So it was unfortunate to see Ossie Sobek dispatched so quickly. But you know, things happen. Things happen when you go up against the Jedi, and one Anakin Skywalker in particular. Just my 2 cents on that. But yeah, again, just a subtle little thing. And I don't know if that's in the script or if that was something that the director Stuart Lee wanted to give to the character. I just think it's one of those small little touches that I just really, really like. So now we get to the scene in which I'm talking about. We see our heroes, the team of Jedi and clone troopers and Citadel escapees rushing along the edge of a mountainous region on the planet, and they come to where they need to be to get to that rendezvous point, and they have to do a vertical descent right to the next level of the planet, right? To get to that rendezvous point. And this is when the droids attack. And Ahsoka lets us know that the droids are going to try and box them in, use this cliff face that they're up against to pin them. But the Jedi's plan is to go down, right? So you get your rappelling cables, and you throw Tarkin on your back, and you start walking down the sheer face of the cliff face. Sheer face of the cliff face. I don't know. You know what I'm trying to say. They walk vertically down the ramp with the escapees on their back, the clone troopers, the Jedi in the front, and the commando droids see these rappelling lines sunk into the ground, and they shoot one out. And this is where a clone trooper and the other clone escapee on his back plummet to their deaths. Brutal. That is not a way that I would want to go. I am not much for the mountain or rock climbing because I'm terrified of these sort of things. And that's always sort of what I've envisioned happening to me if I go into it. Not that a commander droid is going to shoot the line out. That I just wouldn't put it in correctly, and it would just slide right out of the earth, and I would perish in a very horrific and painful manner, or at least painful for the split second that I would feel it before I just become a pancake. Or even worse, I survive, and I'm laying there in absolute sheer pain for the rest of my final moments. Anywho, not to go on too much of a side tangent there, but yeah, just again, I mention it because we have seen some horrific clone trooper deaths in this episode, or in this 3-episode arc, and that one is maybe one of my least favorites. Just watching those guys fall face first into the planet's surface, that cannot feel good. Cannot feel good. We also see in this sequence that R2-D2 has to say goodbye to his battle droids. He orders them to attempt to delay and buy as much time as possible for the Jedi and the clone troopers to escape. And the B1 battle droids do not do well. They are dispatched fairly quickly, but it's sort of an amusing little note when the B1 tells R2 that it's been an honor to serve under him, and they're gonna do their best, and then they just get so killed, so destroyed so quickly. Really, there's not a lot of levity in these episodes, but the R2 stuff with the B1 battle droids is about as close as we're gonna get to it, right? So why not enjoy it for these final moments? All right, let's see. I think our next sequence here is gonna be talking Anakin, Ahsoka about Tarkin, and again, this is an interesting moment for these two as we're starting to see again Anakin's kind of pushing back against the Jedi philosophies and sort of the way he views it as restraining them in the war effort. So let's check it out.
Why did Master Peel have to share half the intel with that guy? It's like he's not even grateful we rescued him.
Captain Tarkin feels the Jedi should be relieved from the burden of leading the war effort.
That's ridiculous.
Maybe. But we aren't soldiers. We're peacekeepers. The Jedi Code often prevents us from going far enough to achieve victory.
A rather simple point of view.
Either way, he is a good captain.
So just prior to that clip, there is an epic eye roll from Ahsoka Tano that she sort of directs in Tarkin's area because he's getting a little snippy and or snarky, and Master Evan Peel throws it right back in his face, and again, Ahsoka just unleashes the most epic Ahsoka eye roll you could possibly imagine. And again, it's an interesting conversation between the three Jedi, between Obi-Wan, Anakin, and Ahsoka about the limitations of the Jedi Code and how it's sort of restricting them in this war effort. But Anakin talks about that later on too, about how the Jedi are peacekeepers, and it maybe being the leaders of a war isn't their primary responsibility. What's interesting about this is that we have to look at Ahsoka, right? This is not the first time we're bringing this up. This is a young, impressionable Padawan who's being brought up in the time of the Clone Wars. She is learning something. She's learning the Jedi ways with very different circumstances surrounding her, and from her point of view, I think she may be thinking of herself more as a warrior than a peacekeeper. But again, these are things that for us to debate as we continue watching the show and we continue to watch Ahsoka's evolution. But it's always important to keep that in mind, that she was a Padawan at a very, very, I don't know, a very, an interesting moment, just before the fall of the Jedi, the fall of the Republic, and we have asserted that Ahsoka may be the greatest of the Jedis from this era to come out of this. But again, can you call her a Jedi when she's not one any longer? She breaks her affiliation with the Order, as we all know. But through like the battle testedness that she gets to by the 7th season, she has sort of transcended the Order in a sense. And again, we don't want to dive too far down that rabbit hole just yet, but these are sort of like those quiet moments where we have to remind ourselves of who and what's happening, who Ahsoka is at this moment in her evolution, to where she'll be further down the road, and to look at the circumstances in which she's learning how to be a Jedi Knight. Like these are trying times at the very least to try and train a very impressionable young Jedi, and this impressionable young Jedi just happens to be the Padawan of Anakin Skywalker, a Jedi with an interesting point of view on certain topics like the war and why he thinks that Tarkin is right and why the Jedi Code doesn't do enough to allow them to win. So this is all information she's taking in, and it's part of her growth overall. And again, we know where she lands, but there's still a huge chunk of Ahsoka's journey that we don't know, and that'll be fun to kind of see if they go into that at a certain point down the road with maybe that whole new Ahsoka show coming out soon. We'll see. Let's get back into another conversation happening on the planet's surface. This one, well, it's not quite as juicy as that last one, but not too bad either.
It's not wise to argue with Master Peel. It's certainly not a good career move.
General Skywalker, I stand by my principles, no matter what. Besides, I needn't worry about my career. I've fallen into favor with the Chancellor. He shall support me.
Oh? I happen to know the Chancellor quite well myself.
No, really?
Really?
Let's keep moving. If we're not at the rendezvous at the exact time, we'll miss our window.
All right, so just prior, again, there's a couple of scenes prior to this we haven't talked about too much, but Ossie Sobek talking to the blockade, he comms up to the blockade, lets them know, hey, expect Jedi forces. Someone's got to be coming to rescue these people, so be prepared. We see the Jedi on their Star Cruisers preparing to come out of hyperspace and launch their attack. And we're given the impression that, as everyone just said, there's a small window of rescue, but the Jedi must be prepared to leave these people behind if they're not there and they're not ready. I think we all know that's not going to happen. But again, just kind of setting the moment, setting the scene, building the tension is probably the best way to describe those scenes as we're kind of building towards that third act. And at the same time, Ossie Sobek on the planet's surface has released the Anubis, a tracking dog-like creature that sort of resembles the Egyptian god Anubis in its facial structure. And these are animals that are going to track down and find the fugitives and pose problems for them in the next battle that is to come. The Jedi, the clone troopers, they can hear that the more droids, the Anubis, on their way, they make a plan. They're going to spring a bit of a trap, right? They're going to try and get in from behind and attack the droids and the Anubis at the same time. And they're able to spring this attack, and we get a good battle, a really good action sequence here. Anakin and Obi-Wan are a distraction. They cause the Anubis to leave the other group behind so that they can circle back and get them again from behind, right? Kind of like try to box them in on their own, right? And it works out pretty darn well. And again, a fun action sequence. We see the Jedi doing some stuff. We get to see Anakin and Obi-Wan dispatching the Anubis with their lightsabers. Ahsoka, gets engaged in a nice battle as well. And it's also at this point that Jedi Master Evan Peel will get captured by the Anubis. We'll get caught. We'll get bitten. We'll get torn and thrown around and tossed about by the Anubis. And he will make the journey into the light, but not before imparting some words and message and important information to Ahsoka Tano. So let's check that sequence out right now.
I have to get help.
No. Don't leave. Listen to me carefully, child. The information. I need you to deliver it back to the Council.
I should find Anakin or Obi-Wan. They need to hear this.
No. You must listen.
But I wasn't assigned to the team. I lied just so I could be a part of the mission.
Whether you were meant to be on this mission or not, you are now the most important part of it. Remember this, and see to it that the information I'm about to give you is revealed to no one but the Jedi Council.
Alright, so there we go. Ahsoka confesses on Evan Peele's deathbed that she's not supposed to be there. But as we have learned many times over the course of our fandom as Star Wars fans, the Force often works in mysterious ways. And as Master Evan Peele tells us, she has now become the most important member of the team because she now has the other half of the information, the Nexus roots that the Separatists so desperately want. Also important here is what Evan Peele is the sort of rules, right? Like only for the Jedi Council. And you have to suspect, based on what we've learned over the last 2 episodes, based on how Captain Tarkin feels about the Jedi Knights, that he's not going to go along with that. So we're getting a bit of foreshadowing of potential conflict between the Jedi and Tarkin by the end of this episode. But yeah, Ahsoka becomes the most important person on the team, and we witness the death of a Jedi Master in this sequence. And it's a pretty, I don't know if brutal is the right word I want to use, but the way that Master Evan Peele is tossed around like a rag doll by the Anubis is pretty brutal. And we've been seeing Master Evan Peele do some serious fighting. He has a really cool technique about him, the way he does things, the flips. His height is not an issue, so his fighting style is sort of reminiscent of Yoda's, a little less whirling dervish, but still very effective. And and it's just it's. I don't know if it's a sad scene because we don't know the Jedi Master that well, but the impact that the death has on the others is of significance. And then they give him a bit of a Jedi funeral, right? They throw him down into like those sulfur rivers and let him burn up. And he's not the only character that's fallen into some sulfur rivers, but this is more of a moment for the Jedi, right? Like funerary rites of the Jedi Knights before a time when they know that they could just simply transcend into the light and join the Force that way. And, I'd love to have that explored more fully because there have been hints in various books and comics that back before, sort of like the dying and transcending to the Force is sort of a lost skill of the Jedi. Like it used to be something they could do easily early in the history of the Order, but it becomes one of those skills that they sort of have lost over time. And it's just sort of a interesting little nugget in Star Wars lore that so much of Star Wars lore I wish they would explore more fully. But when you're dealing with an ancient order of mystics, you gotta have some wiggle room, right? Because you want to be able to tell your stories, and maybe at a certain point you go and tell that story. But Disney has seemed reluctant to go back and tell too much of the history of the Jedi. We got some Dawn of the Jedi books, one book in a comic book series from Dark Horse, and I guess it's all technically not canon anymore. There's every now and then there's sort of a veiled reference to like the moons of Bogdan and things like that, and you just wonder how much of that carries over. And again, we can talk about the lost continuity of the Jedi Order for 1,000 episodes too. But it's just something to think about, keep in your mind. Anyways, let's get to the next big moment. So at this point in the episode, we're fully engaged in space battle as the Republic forces engage the Separatists in orbit, and the Republic launches their rescue teams to come and get the Jedi and the clone troopers and Captain Tarkin and the whole shebang. They're trying to get everybody. Meanwhile, on the planet's surface, Ossie Sobek and his forces have tracked down the Jedi and are engaging with them in an attempt to recapture and reassert their control over the situation and gain control of the Nexus routes for themselves. What happens is that, well, a lot happens because it's a great action sequence, but Ossie Sobek, we see the moment that we talked about at the beginning of the episode where Tarkin has an unarmed Sobek lined up in his shots, but he misses. And then I misremembered how the climax of this battle came to be. And it's actually Ahsoka Tano who jumps to Tarkin's rescue and puts the lightsaber through Ossie Sobek, ending his reign as the commandant, as the warden of the Citadel. But I want to go ahead and play that sequence because I do really like it, and Tarkin's response to Ahsoka saving him is of great interest to me, what he says to her. So let's check this out.
Captain! If I can't have the information, it will die with you!
My thanks, Padawan Tano. I see you've trained her well.
At this point, after Sobek's death, the droid forces are still coming in, right? They're still there. They're going to fulfill their mission. They're going to do what they're supposed to do. And for Tarkin and Skywalker, Kenobi, Tano, it's just lasts long enough to get rescued, right? Well, good thing the Republic gunships are making their way down to do that right now. Master Plo Koon arrives, grabs our heroes. Time to go back to orbit, get back to the Jedi cruisers, and hyperspace the heck out of there, which they do. But, you know, they do a good job of during that sequence of making it seem like, oh, they could get shot down at any moment, blah, blah, blah. But, you know, they don't. They don't. We know they're going to make their escape. So let's go to the end of the episode. Let's hear those final moments where we get to hear that tension, that moment that was foreshadowed earlier. You know, Ahsoka will deliver her portion of the information of the Nexus routes to the Jedi Council. Tarkin has feelings.
Of Master Peel's loss, we are sorry to hear.
He will be missed.
Because of his great sacrifice, we now have the Nexus route coordinates.
Captain Tarkin and Ahsoka have each memorized half.
Debrief them both. We must.
With all due respect, Master Jedi, I was instructed by Chancellor Palpatine to bring the intel directly to him for debriefing.
I promised Master Peel that I would deliver it only to the Council. And that's what I will do.
Personally meet with the Chancellor, I will. Decide what is best to do. We shall.
Master Plo, there's something we want to ask you. Did you assign Ahsoka to the mission?
It appears I did.
All right, so there's our conflict. There's Master Plo sort of giving Ahsoka I don't know, an alibi, if you will, with her master, with Anakin Skywalker. But yeah, we see the line in the sand between Tarkin and the Republic military and the Chancellor's relationship, and then the Jedi off here to the side. One of the things I was trying to figure out, and I don't remember, and I was going to look it up, but I sort of talked myself out of it because I want to see if it's something that we get back to later on. And maybe you guys remember better than I do. But I was sort of wondering if the Nexus routes are what the Separatists will ultimately use to launch the attack against Coruscant that opens Episode 3. That opens Revenge of the Sith, you know, when we see the planet under siege from Separatist forces. And I couldn't remember if that's what's used or not. Because, you know, eventually Palpatine gets all this information anyways, right? But I was very curious to see, and my memory is vague on it if the Nexus routes are mentioned again or not. So I guess we're going to find out as we rewatch the series, you know. But if your memory knows, good on you. Good on you. And you can tell me, like, hey, yeah, Dodo Bird, they're setting this all up, and they deliver, you know, down the road later on, which is very, very likely. So now here's the final moments of the episode. We get into, like, that philosophical debate. We get to talk about our Jedi fortune cookie about honor. It still sort of works because of Obi-Wan's speech here that ties it together. But yeah, it would have been interesting if we got to see Tarkin kill Ossie Sobek in cold blood. But again, my personal speculation, my personal theory, they changed it because Anakin couldn't be witness to that. I don't know. We'll see, because it would have damaged their relationship. We'll see.
A job well done, General Skywalker. I wish more Jedi had your military sensibilities. Perhaps I can inform the Chancellor of your valor.
I'm not sure what to think of your new ally.
Well, I think we need people like him. This is a war. If we aren't willing to do what it takes to win, we risk losing everything we try to protect.
Unfortunately, war tends to distort our point of view. If we sacrifice our code, even for victory, we may lose that which is most important, our honor.
And as we all know, the Empire has no time for honor. Anyways, that is it. That is the Citadel trilogy. 8.5 buckets on this for sure. It's a really rock solid trilogy. I love the beginning, the formation of the partnership, the relationship between Anakin Skywalker and Will of Tarkin. And I sort of like seeing Ahsoka put in this position, right? Like in that first episode, she disobeys orders. She goes on a mission she shouldn't, but by the end, but whether you, I'm curious if you disagree, or I guess how you feel about the process. Like, was it the will of the Force that swayed her to disobey these orders, or was it her own sort of impulsiveness? And again, if the Force is acting through her, then it makes total sense because it all works out. And like Master Peel says, she becomes the most important person in the mission ultimately. So her being there may have been the will of the Force. Food for thought, right? We don't really get any clear answers, and I mean that's the whole point of the Force, right? If it was a yes or no sort of scenario, it wouldn't be as much fun. And Star Wars is fun, gosh darn it, and that's why we like it, and that's why we want to watch more of it. I don't know what else to say about this episode. Again, I think I lean closer to like the 8.5 buckets on this one because there are some really nice little moments, but it's also very, very action packed. Like you can talk about Tarkin and Anakin. You can talk about Ahsoka's pivotal moments in this course of the series. And while I don't know if this is one of her most pivotal moments, I think it's an important one. It's an important one for her to have to examine her role as a Jedi, as a peacekeeper, or as a warrior. And again, that all comes to light later on. We continue to explore that balance, that duality for her. And yeah, it's just super, super good. And give me more. Give me more. Give me more. And I like it. All right, we're going to get out of here. But let's go ahead. Remind you one more time that we are on social media at Mando_Vision, Twitter and Instagram. Please support the show. Like us. Follow us. Subscribe to us. Whatever it is on your app. Make sure you do it. And then share the show with all the other Mandalorians in your covert. We truly, truly appreciate that. If you have the time or the inclination, 5-star reviews are insanely helpful in our quest to defeat the tyranny of the algorithm. If you do that, that'd be super, super cool. And we want to thank the official Mandovision Maniacs who signed up over at patreon.com/Mandovision. You can join the Maniacs and gain access to sweet bonus content and possibly Death Star plans. Talk to the Bothans. Thank you to our current Patreons, the Aspen Hill Chody, the Batman Abejo, Jeff Nail. Jeff is a co-host of The Ringing Ear, a great music podcast I recommend highly. Thanks to Evil Circle, the evilest of all circles. There's probably Sith Lords in that circle, if I were to guess. The Squidmaster General, Mr. Brian Broussard, the New Jersey Devil, Mark Wegemer, our very own Joker and Harley Quinn, Brian and Krista of Pariah Brewing Company, here in San Diego, and coming in days to Baltimore, Maryland. We're days away from in Baltimore, Maryland. Get thirsty, Baltimore. Get thirsty. Thanks to the Beer Hop Brigadier General Jesus Beer Hops, the Silent Assassin, he who shall not be named, and Syndicate Ram himself, the co-host of Come On, It's So Good, my favorite podcast that I've been a guest on a couple times. Love it, love it, love it. All right, that's going to be it for Star Wars The Clone Wars Rewatch Mondays. We'll be back on Wednesday with another breakdown on another exciting installment of the Book of Boba Fett. And if you're not liking the Book of Boba Fett, keep it to yourself. Don't care. Because we're having fun no matter what. No matter what. All right? I mean, you can tell me if you don't like it. It's fine. Just remember, we're all about the positivity here, man. We're all about being Star Wars fans and supporting Star Wars. And again, that doesn't mean we can't criticize. We can't be critical. If you're listening to my Book of Boba Fett reviews, you know I'm happy to be critical. It doesn't mean I don't love me some Star Wars. Doesn't mean I still don't love me some Boba Fett. All right? And that's all I'm going to say about that until Wednesday. We'll be back very, very soon. Just remember, this podcast can only end one way. This is the way.
This is the way.
This is the way.
This is the way.
You expect me to search the galaxy for the home of this creature and deliver it to a race of enemy sorcerers?
This is the way.